Hello, everyone. Rob Paneer here. It's hockey time, and that means that there is a lot to do for Field Pass. Plus, I run a ministry, and I am currently working on my doctorate. I have a lot to do already, but wouldn't you know my wife would like more than 5 minutes of my time each day? I need to ensure that I am at my absolute best, and this is where Pure Energy has been a godsend. Pure is made of all natural products and helps to boost my energy while also helping me to think more clearly. I am getting more done than ever before, and there is no big letdown with Pure. I get 6 to 8 hours of great energy and clear thinking at a cost that is far less than you pay for store-bought energy drinks. Plus, Pure is actually good for your health. If you're looking to energize your day and get more done, then you need a dose of the Pure Performance. To find out more, go to thepureperformance.com and fill out the request form. That's thepureperformance.com. Someone will get in touch with you right away, helping you to get on the Pure Performance pathway to success.
3 topics, 60 minutes covering the biggest news in the ECHL. This is the 3 Periods Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Matthew Will and Matthew Harding.
And good Thursday evening. First time we've got to say that in a few weeks, as we've done a couple of the pre-recorded type of our 3 Periods Podcast. If you've never been here before, welcome in. We take an hour of your week to run you through what's gone on in the ECHL and get you set for the weekend of action. I'm Matthew Will, joined by Matthew Harding once again. How you doing?
What's up, dude? You have been on the road. You've been a road warrior the last couple of weeks, being down in Auburn, Alabama, of all places, which was actually quite cool, it looked like.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. The college I go to was playing an exhibition game against Auburn last week, and I had the privilege of going to call the play-by-play of the game, and boy, was that something else. That's a memory I won't forget anytime soon. But I will say, Bruce Pearl kept his shirt on the whole game.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But we did get chirped by Auburn fans as soon as the game ended, so at least something's going.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
If they're not, well, they're actually pretty decent at football this year. But you know that Auburn never really is decent at football unless they beat Alabama. So
exactly,
the Iron Bowl comes up here in a couple of weeks. I don't think they're going to win that game, but
it'll be tough. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, kind of secretly pulling for Auburn because of the connection that you may have made with Bruce Pearl and the piece of memorabilia he gave you.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl knows who I am, at least for this week, and
with the War Eagle on it. Yeah,
he signs his autographs with War Eagle. I thought that was pretty unique.
That's tremendous. I wonder if he goes around Auburn signing checks, Bruce Pearl, War Eagle.
I didn't ask him that one. Next time.
Definitely.
Well, news broke today. Kind of hit us all in the face this morning when the ECHL announced they were going to inform everyone of the 4 Hall of Famers that will be inducted in January at the Hall of Fame induction luncheon that'll take place right before the All-Star game. And we're going to open the show by kind of breaking some of those down.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be honored on January 17th of 2022 down in Jacksonville, Florida, as a part of the 2022 ECHL All-Star Classic. It'll be a luncheon this year as opposed to the usual dinner, since it's on a Sunday instead of a weekday.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely filled the criteria of what they wanted to be doing with the Hall of Fame, awarding a player, a developmental player, a coach of some kind, and then also a referee. And we had one of the greatest referees that ever spent time in the ECHL as one of the 4. So we'll dig right into the 4. Ray Harris is the first one. Brett Moretti, Joel Martin, and Tim Nowak. We'll just kind of go through them one at a time, but first I want to get your initial thoughts when you heard the 4.
A pretty decent class, all things considered. It's when you look at the league, it's amazing to look at it and realize just how many good players and people have come through the league, whether it's through officiating or if it's through coaching or through the front office or even as a player. And there was so much talent in this league. It'll be interesting to see in future years if we start to get into more of the modern day class. Not that any of these people are if you were not in the ECHL before 2014, you kind of don't know who these guys are, but they're all bedrock players to how the ECHL formed the league here over the last number of years. So I'm interested in hearing from everybody, really, when we go to have their Hall of Fame speeches on that Monday afternoon in Jacksonville. And, it's, that has to be the highest honor. We've had a chance to talk to several of the, I think every ECHL Hall of Fame inductee when the ceremony was held here in Wichita a few years ago. And they all said that, regardless of if you're in the Hockey Hall of Fame or the NHL Hall of Fame or American Hockey League, wherever you end up, this is your sentinel moment. And congratulations to all of them for this honor. And it's very good to see that the ECHL continues to honor those people from their past. I would have rather maybe have been two classes, kind of like what the American Hockey League did
because they missed out on last year.
Yeah, with having Brian McKenna go in, or excuse me, David Andrews go in his own class and then reinduct a new class this year. But I kind of understand why they didn't do that, because everything was just moved back a year. You're not really having a separate Hall of Fame induction ceremony or separate All-Star game or anything like that. So, kind of understand why the league did it that way. And, just excited to hear from everybody and excited to get going on breaking these down.
Well, I think the ECHL's news release today really stated some of this the best. So I'm going to read directly from that, because they did a great job of writing these out. So the first one, I believe they go in alphabetical, but Ray Harris is the first one. Served as the owner and president of the Cincinnati Cyclones for nearly 20 years, in addition to his role as chief financial officer for a Nederlander company, where he is responsible for all aspects of the company's financial operations. Upon Nederlander's purchase of the Cyclones in 2003, Harris helped build the team into a 2-time Kelly Cup champion and a 4-time division champion, while setting several ECHL league attendance records in that process. The Cyclones have welcomed the 2 largest crowds in ECHL postseason history, with 13,348 fans in their Kelly Cup clinching victory in 2010 and 12,722 fans in their championship victory in 2008. Cincinnati has had the 3rd largest crowd in ECHL regular season history, when they had 16,529 fans on February 27th of 2016. Harris also served as chairman of the ECHL Board of Governors for 5 seasons, from the 15-16 season to the 19-20 season, and currently serves as chair of the league's audit committee. Obviously, the Cincinnati Cyclones, with him and Matt Thomas and what they had built there for a long time, have not only put themselves on the map of the ECHL, but minor league hockey everywhere.
Yes, and they had huge shoes to fill in the wake of the Cincinnati Mighty Ducks folding, if you will, and becoming the Cincinnati Cyclones. Ray Harris has always been one of those forward-thinking presidents and owners, and if you look back at the team he has there in Cincinnati, led by Kristen Ruop, I believe she is the only female general manager in the ECHL. So, to have that kind of forward thinking and bring somebody in like that, and then you look at the success that they've had with people behind the mic and in the front office. You look at Everett Fitzhugh, who's now broadcasting for the Seattle Kraken. Many other broadcasters through that chain have gone on to have really solid NHL or American Hockey League and NHL careers. Ray Harris is in no small part of that. And then you look at the success that they've had on the ice as well, winning 2 Kelly Cup championships and doing it with style at home, having some of the biggest crowds in league playoff history. That shows that Cincinnati is a hockey town, even though it is dominated by baseball 6 months out of the year and football questionably 4 months out of the year. Cincinnati Cyclones own that market when it comes to hockey, and I think they've been crucial to the development of the Columbus Blue Jackets and the enhancement, if you will, of the Cleveland Monsters up there in the American Hockey League. That corridor, that I-71 corridor there between Cincinnati and Cleveland is huge for hockey development in the state of Ohio, and Cincinnati has had a large part to do with that.
And I think that when we've always known how big the owners are in this league. I mean, especially with there being 3 or 4 of them that own multiple teams. I think you mentioned in the last show that Dan McDonnell alone owns 1/9 of the ECHL teams.
Yeah,
And we see more and more of that. So to have a leader like this be that chair of the board for that many years, and to now still be part of the ECHL decision makers, these are the right guys you want at the helm. The ECHL is moving in the right directions, and it's because of guys like this.
Yes, and Ray continues to be a really good voice in the room for the league, being a part of their audit committee, and having served as the chair of the board of governors for 5 seasons. So good on him. It'll be interesting to, like I said, hear his address and hear where he thinks the league is going, and things like that. And I'm interested to have him on whenever we have a chance to move this very podcast to Jacksonville here in just a few short weeks.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to the next one. This is the first of 2 players. Brett Moretti played all but 38 games of his 10-year professional career in the ECHL, skating in 550 games with the South Carolina Stingrays from 94 to 03. He ranks 23rd in league history in games played. He captured the Kelly Cup twice with the Stingrays, once in 97 and once in 01, notching 35 points in 29 games over the course of those 2 championship runs. Moretti scored at least 20 goals 7 times over his 9 seasons and ranks 23rd in ECHL history with 194 career goals, is tied for 37th with 287 assists and 36th with 481 points. And his 30 career playoff goals are tied for 13th in ECHL postseason history, while his 62 points are tied for 26th. He might not be the guy who's leading in every category, but he's the guy who's in every category.
I'm going to rattle off these numbers for you: 103, 121, 103, 107, 142, 172, 120, 117, 142. And I'm going to ask you what those numbers have in common.
Well, they're all triple digits.
No, those are all of his penalty minutes in South Carolina from 94-95 to 02-03, and he backed them up with north of 40 points every single year except for 2003. And when he played up in the American Hockey League with Rochester in 38 games, that's no slouch either, with 20 points and 63 penalty minutes. This was a guy who played the game at the time that it was at the time it was being played. He played that frame of the game the right way and had huge success in the playoffs, putting up 23 points in 96-97 and 12 more points in 2000-2001 when the Stingrays went on deep playoff runs. This is a pretty good choice for me to have as a player honoree in the ECHL Hall of Fame. And like I said, it'll be we heard from Jared Bednar last year, or I guess now in 2020, when everything was here in Wichita, and you could tell, and I think Brett Moretti was a part of those teams. You could tell that there was a really special bond with that group, led by Jared Bednar and Brett Moretti as well. So maybe he tells some more war stories about his former teammate there in South Carolina, and and harken back to the championship days not that long ago for the South Carolina Stingrays. Player, I think there are a whole number of teams here in the ECHL who would love to have a player like him on their roster today, racking up over 100 PIMs and over 50 points. A true power forward in this league.
And to average less than 4 missed games a year for a 10-year career
Yeah.
is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that speaks to the biggest part of his game, is that he was just so consistent.
Durability
Yeah.
is the word that comes to mind there.
Well, we'll move on to our next one of the greatest goaltenders in ECHL history, Joel Martin, who played parts of 10 seasons in the ECHL with Columbus, Georgia, Trenton, Augusta, Elmira, and Kalamazoo, and ranks second among goaltenders in league history with 22,962 minutes played, third with 394 appearances, and fourth with 199 wins. He holds the top 2 spots on the ECHL single season minutes played list. He had 37.77 in 15-16 and 37.93 in 12-13, and has the second and third spots on the single season saves list at 2,084 in 15-16 and 2,051 in 12-13, and games played, where he had 64 and 63 in those 2 years as well. Martin is tied for third in ECHL history with 5 seasons of 20 or more wins, and he is the only goaltender in league history to have at least 3 seasons of 30 or more victories, while he is one of 3 to notch back-to-back 30-plus win seasons. While he's currently the third season as Kalamazoo's head coach, he will forever be one of the greatest goaltenders to ever be through this league.
Yeah, and I actually had a chance to watch him when he played on the old Central Hockey League team, the Odessa Jackalopes, before they folded, and those were some really good Central Hockey League teams with players like Sebastian Tennell on them. I'm going to go back in here and look and poach some names. You had Scott Hillman and Jeff Goldie and Matt Cressman on there. Players who were very much, you could kind of take those Odessa teams and move them to Kalamazoo. They were very much one in the same team. So I had a chance to watch him there, a really talented young netminder, and in a league in the old Central Hockey League where it was players who were coming down and have been there for years and years and years and were just, playing, what we knew at the time was really solid hockey, but it was really, compared to today's game, glorified beer league. He was among the best in the Central Hockey League, and it was no surprise that he moved on to the ECHL and had several really good seasons there with Kalamazoo and Augusta and Elmira. Had some cups of coffee up in the American Hockey League as well. Played 18 games with Bridgeport in 2010 and 2011, and even went overseas to play in Denmark for 40 contests back in 2011-12 before coming back home, if you will, to the Kalamazoo Wings. So we'll hear from John Peterson, the voice of the Kalamazoo Wings, on this in a little bit. But Joel Martin is, from everything that we've heard about him and everything that I know, an exemplary human being. He was a hell of a netminder, and it's good that his bust is going in the ECHL Hall of Fame here coming up in a few weeks.
To play almost 400 games and have a save percentage of .909 and a goals against average of .301.
That's tremendous.
Not too shabby.
That doesn't suck.
And yeah, like you mentioned, the reason he only played parts of the 10 seasons in the ECHL is because he also spent parts of 9 seasons up in the AHL.
Yeah.
He played 24 games total up there, 348 goals against average, 880 save percentage while up there. While his luck up there wasn't the greatest, he proved the way to succeed down here.
But he was an upper echelon ECHL goalie.
Yeah.
And not really one of those AHL goalies that stuck. And I really hate it for him, because I feel like if there was some facet of his game, if he was a little taller, if he had quicker reflexes, or if he moved side to side a little bit better or anything like that, he could have been one tremendous American Hockey League goaltender. As it is here, he was exemplary enough that, he had 400 starts in minor league hockey in various forms of minor league hockey for a number of years. That career spanned 16 years in the ECHL and across minor league hockey. He's got some more stories to tell for sure. And just a tremendous, tremendous goaltender.
9-time ECHL Goaltender of the Week.
Wow.
He's going to be an enjoyable interview when we get to speak with him in January.
Mm-hmm.
The final of the 4 is Tim Nowak, who becomes just the 3rd on-ice official to earn enshrinement into the ECHL Hall of Fame, joining Joel Ernst in 2011 and Brad Phillips in 2017. He began his career as a linesman in the ECHL in 1989 and worked 3 seasons in the league, twice earning an assignment working the Riley Cup finals. He became the first ECHL on-ice official to reach the National Hockey League when he made his debut on October 8th of 1993, went on to work over 1,700 NHL games in 26 seasons before retiring in 2019. He was selected to work the 03 All-Star Game, the 03 Stanley Cup Finals, the 04 World Cup of Hockey, and the first ever Winter Classic that took place in 08. He was also selected to officiate in 2 Winter Olympics, working games in 02 in Salt Lake City and 2010 in Vancouver. He now serves as the ECHL officiating development coach ever since he retired from the NHL. There's not many more you can say have got to do it all quite like this man.
Yes. And, this is what you want as a developmental league. You want to put those people in the hall. And I completely agree with your sentiment earlier that you want to put these people in the hall who do the development as a player, as an owner, front office, however you want to do it, referee. And Tim Nowak really is that by all measures, having been able to work some of the most prestigious events in all of hockey, and having to work 2 Olympic games, just an invaluable member to have as part of the ECHL development team for officials there. And congratulations to him.
One of the things that came into my mind when I was kind of reading up today, preparing for this, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on it too.
Sure.
I'm interested to know, and I'll ask him in January, what goes through the mindset. So obviously a player, when they make the NHL, they get to do those couple of laps all on their own. What's it like to be an official and get to step on NHL ice for the very first time and take your laps? Usually you have some booze raining down from the stands in a lot of levels of hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to hear how the first couple laps on the ice went when you get to make your NHL debut, even as a referee.
That's a really good question. And can you imagine, like, he had so many firsts
Yeah.
where you're you're refereeing Olympic games, you're refereeing the World Cup of Hockey, your first Stanley Cup final game. Like, what is that like when they put the patch on your jersey and you see the Stanley Cup emblem there? Like, you had to have chills. And then you're going out there for your first few laps. You must have been skating that at like 50 miles an hour. Just shot like he was shot out of a cannon or something. So I'm really interested to hear his question or his answer to your question on that. That's a really good question. Like, we hear from players all the time. I couldn't sleep the night before my first insert league here game.
Yeah.
If you're a rookie, I couldn't sleep before this game. I wonder if it was the same way for officials as well. Like, the first night, your name is on the Stanley Cup final roster. Do you get the butterflies? Do you start thinking about what if here, or how do you, all of those things come to mind clearly? And I'm excited to talk to him about that.
Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun to hear his thoughts and
Absolutely.
kind of get the side that we don't usually get, especially as we cover leagues. Very rarely do we get to talk to the officials and hear their side of the story.
Right. And, there should be, and I applaud the league for doing this, but, to have officials in every ECHL Hall of Fame class, I think it's been in the last 4 or 5 that they've had a referee in there. It would be very cool to see more of that happen moving forward. There have been a lot of really good referees who have come through this league. Of course, they don't have to be, or they can't be plying their trade still actively. Like, they can't be still working NHL games. I'm more interested in finding out, like, what the criteria is to be an ECHL Hall of Famer, like whose names were on the list this year and things like that. All of that stuff you don't hear about But
Yeah.
this is definitely a good class. Congratulations to all of these gentlemen. It is an honor richly earned, and we will celebrate them when we get to Jacksonville here in about 9 weeks.
Absolutely. And somehow that number only goes down 1 each week, but it feels like it goes down 3 or 4.
You're telling me, man. Like it's do we fly or do we drive? I don't know.
Well,
But
and that means we're at that halfway point of the season, and to think that we're only that close, that we're only that far away from uh, having half of an ECHL season that came out of nowhere on us is
right.
just crazy to think.
Yeah, it is for sure.
So we'll progress into our second period where we'll take a quick look around the ECHL. Pretty light week of news in the ECHL, but there's some work in the standings that needs to be talked about, and then also our picks to click for this week before we're joined by John Peterson later in the show. The first thing being that today, on Thursday, the Heartlanders named their first captain in team history. Forward Chris Bennett gets the C on the upper left of his jersey, while Reese Smolek and Jake Linhart, the two defensemen, will get A's on their sweaters. Not a bad crew to start your franchise with.
Not a bad crew at all. And Chris Bennett is, one of those players who you can really build a franchise around. Has leadership qualities from going back to his days in the Ontario Hockey League and at university with the University of New Brunswick. Second year pro, had some games in Stockton last year, and then games with both the Iowa Wild and Heartlanders this year as well. So good for him, and congratulations to that leadership group, the first ever in Heartlanders history.
So that's just about it for the exciting news of the week.
I do want to ask you though, and Maine announced their leadership group today. I think Connor Doherty is the new captain of the Maine Mariners. The Kansas City Mavericks named Lane Scheidel their captain before last week's games. Does it surprise you that we're waiting? And Wichita Thunder practically waited until the season was over last year to announce a captain. Does it surprise you that teams are waiting this long to announce their leadership group?
Absolutely not. I think you start the year in a lot of cases, you're going to have some AHL guys who are sitting down at the beginning of the year, and you want them to be your leaders, but you really don't know how long they're going to be there. And you also really don't know until you get into game action. Some of the rookies, or maybe a guy comes from overseas and is trying out the league over here. You really don't know the leadership abilities some of these players have until you see them in a couple of games. So it doesn't surprise me at all that teams are taking their time and waiting. Of course, the teams that have guys who come back year after year, it doesn't surprise me that they name theirs before the season starts. So
Right.
I think this is something we're going to see more and more of as we go throughout the next few years. I think it's the right way to do it in a developmental league. Trying to name a captain and then having the awkward stages of, does he get called up? What do we do? Or, putting a pressure on a guy's back before the season's even started. And in many cases, when you've never seen him actually play in one of your sweaters. So,
And we've all in years past, we've heard of letters being used as bargaining chips to get players to come to certain cities. Uh, you know, you know, Coaches kind of preordain those letters. Like when you and I worked together in Wichita with Malcolm Cameron had his leadership group at the front of the room on media day. And here's my captain, here are my road captain assistants, here are my home assistants. These are our leaders for this year. And I think if you do that, and I want to see your thought on this, I feel like that in some ways you kind of stunt the growth of the team a little bit. Like there's no real pool of leaders. I think the players on the team feel like, oh, okay, well, the leaders have been identified. If there was something that I needed to do, I kind of feel a little snake bit now that I can't go up and be a part of that leadership group. Do you feel the same way?
I obviously can't give the perfect answer because I'm not a coach in the ECHL.
Sure.
But I think when you have players that, I'm going to use Wichita, for example, because it's the one I know the best.
Yeah.
They're a very young team this year. And I guess they kind of were in the past couple of years as well. But this year especially, they've got a huge base of youth players. So to go out there and name even a guy who's been in the league 2 or 3 years is, first of all, really hard to throw that on a guy. But second of all, when you've got a team full of young players who have potentially had prior experience as a C or an A down in youth hockey, you don't really know what you're going to get out of them until you see them on ice. So I think waiting a couple of weeks gives them that opportunity. Um, Say you've got 2 or 3 forwards on your team who you signed out of youth hockey, and you knew that when they were in youth they wore an A couple of years. It's possible they could join an ECHL team and then immediately be a leader, whether that's a lead by example guy or a guy who's going to stand up in the locker room and tell his team to do things the right way. I don't think you really know that until you see game action. So giving players the opportunity to play a couple games before you name it, I think is the best thing for the team morale. And for those of you who don't know much about the ECHL or are newer, that's what makes it so much different from the NHL. And NHL can name a captain and keep them for so long because contracts and team loyalty are such a huge thing. Down here, with you being a developmental league, your best players are often your ones who are going to get called up. So you really can't just say, these are our 3 best players, we need to name them captains. You've got to be pretty meticulous about who you're going to name. And I think that's why we see so much waiting.
Yeah, and that's a perfect answer, and this is something that maybe we can table and ask Dan Watson when we have him on the podcast next week. We were going to have him tonight, but family interludes happen, and so we will get Coach Watson from the Toledo Walleye on the show next week. I think that's a really good question to ask him. Like when you go to name a captain, what do you look for in a captain? Do you look does experience take a part in that? Do you feel comfortable going into the season without a captain and things like that? And I have talked to Malcolm Cameron about this, and he felt like he would be uncomfortable on the ice. His team would be uncomfortable on the ice if he didn't have that leadership group identified. So that's probably an old school way of thinking about it, an old school way of looking at it. I like this new approach that coaches are taking the time to wait and identify those players in season. Generally, the players in the locker room know who they are, who those players are going to be before the fans do and the media does. So I'm behind this new wave of how we ordain, if you will, the on ice leaders, the C's and the A's. And really, to fans, the letters to you shouldn't matter. People who don't wear letters generally can go talk to the officials anyway. So, for fans, it's more of, well, player A, player B, and player C are the assistants. Well, that's cool too. So, as a, it probably doesn't mean as much to us as it does to the players on the ice.
And I think if you have leaders on your team, when you throw them in a game and they're faced with throw a scenario out there, it's a 1-1 game with 15 minutes left in the third period, those leaders will rise naturally. You'll see on the ice who are going to be the guys that not only try to take the team on their shoulders with their play, but also do it emotionally on the bench, maybe in your locker room between the second and third. Those are the guys that want to be leaders and are natural leaders will show you that, I think. Of course, I've never been on an ECHL bench or in a locker room, so I don't know the exact talkings, but those people will make themselves known because that's the way they've always done it.
But I have been in a locker room. I have played organized team sports, and I play football. So I'm here to tell you, you're exactly right. Like, I know in the course of a game, I know who's showing out and who's not, and who's consistently game in and game out the players who I can go to, and I know that they're going to step up big for my squad, for my side. And generally I was, one of those players as much as I could be. But you're absolutely right. Like, those players generally come to the forefront in the games when it's tight or when the team needs a message that needs to be sent, or you need to change the tempo of the game somehow, whether it's a big hit or a fight, something, those are the players that do it. And like I said, I'm all on board for this new way of show me you want to earn the
Yeah.
letter on your jersey, as opposed to, oh, well, if I give you the C, will you come play for me?
Yeah.
So
Only time will tell to show how things go in the next few years to see if this is something that continues to elevate as one of those things.
yeah, I don't know if it necessarily will or not. Do you see Sidney Crosby giving up the C to, I don't know, some fourth liner?
I don't think you'll ever see it in the NHL, and
No.
in the AHL, there's enough returning guys that it'll probably be unlikely there as well.
Yeah.
But I think down here it provides that really unique opportunity for guys to stand up and become leaders. So I think we might see this start to spread throughout the league.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, we'll quickly get to our picks to click for the week before we welcome in our guest. Some interesting ones you've chosen this week. But before we get into game one, you can update how the standings look after last week.
So last week, I don't believe, stupid me, life got in the way last week. So I don't believe that I ever uploaded the podcast. Shame, shame, shame on me. So anyway, we had Florida. Both of us took Florida in a game last week. Utah, we took and hit on that. Newfoundland took on Adirondack last week. We both lost on that. We split Allen and Kansas City. Will took that contest with Kansas City. I took Allen and lost, and we both were skunked on Toledo here last week. Some of the same suspects back again this week for us in our picks.
First one is Friday night. Reading travels to Norfolk in a game that has, as every day goes along, gotten more and more interesting.
Yes. Norfolk won on Wednesday night, I believe, in overtime. So that kind of smells of a revenge game for the Reading Royals. I'm going to go with Norfolk on that one. I think they go to 7-2, and I think they score another win in Reading.
I'm going to stick with Norfolk after the start they've had.
Mm-hmm.
These two D-men of Daniel Brickley and Eric Williams, both sitting over a point a game, and both have found ways to generate offense from the back line. If they can continue to keep that rolling, this is going to be a Norfolk team that's going to be some trouble in the North Division.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, they'll be down there in the South with Florida, South Carolina,
South,
Florida, South Carolina, and don't look now, Orlando, when they get healthy, up above them in net again. Whew. Alex Dubois from South Carolina has joined the party down there, and that net minding tandem in Orlando is going to be stout, with a capital stout.
Well, we'll get to Orlando in a second. Our second Friday night game, Fort Wayne at Cincinnati.
Fort Wayne beat Cincinnati in Cincinnati last weekend. In Fort Wayne last weekend. So the return match is tomorrow night in Cincinnati between these two clubs on Friday night, beg your pardon. Man, Cincinnati's played fairly well at home this year. I'm going to go with the Cyclones in that one.
And we conflict again. I like Fort Wayne in this one. Stephen Harper's got off to a rocket start, 9 points through 5 games. I like the defending champs there.
Stephen Harper is up in Chicago right now. Does that change your pick?
No.
Okay. All right.
I said we get back to Orlando. They're at South Carolina Saturday night.
Yes.
What do we like there?
South Carolina for me. That team has come out of the gate really strong. I really like what they're doing down there in South Carolina. A mix of offense, defense, and physicality. That, to me, the South Carolina Stingrays look like look like a Western Conference team without being in the Western Conference. Give me South Carolina in that one.
I agree. South Carolina has added a really interesting addition to their physicality play this year, and I think that's going to be the difference maker in this one.
They are dealing with some COVID issues, though. Some players are on the league commissioner's exempt list. So, maybe you could give Orlando a seeing eye shot there, but man, it's tough to beat South Carolina on home ice. I'm going to go with the Stingrays.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Game 2 is a rematch from last week's Picks to Click. Kansas City is in Allen this time, Saturday night.
If Kansas City can start scoring on the power play, this team is really close to being unbeatable. And man, are the Kansas City Mavericks a nasty team. And I mean that in all sincerity to Mavericks fans. That is a nasty team to play against. They're physical, they're in your face, they're taking the extra shot. Like they are doing that is not your grandpa's Kansas City Mavericks team. So this is going to be another emotional game. Kansas City and Allen, as they always are. The Americans will be without Jack Combs in that contest. He went on IR Thursday. Give me Kansas City in that contest.
Kansas City has 7 guys who have at least 5 points through 7 games. They have proven that they're going to spread this offense out and make every single one of those lines work.
Absolutely.
I like Kansas City again.
Ooh. Wow.
Then it all comes down to an interesting Sunday afternoon matinee, Florida at Atlanta.
I picked this because the Atlanta Gladiators to me are a really interesting story in the South. You and I thought that this would be a 5th or 6th place team in the South this year with Greenville and Florida and South Carolina kind of duking it out. And it may still end up being that way, but this is an early test for an Atlanta Gladiators team that has gotten off to a pretty solid start. Florida has scuffled to start the season, but I see Florida taking this one. Give me the Everblades.
Yeah, it's been interesting because Atlanta really started the year in a different way than everybody else. They've only played 4 games, lost their opening game to Orlando, bounced back with a win at home against Orlando, and then a pair of wins against Jacksonville and Greenville. I like Atlanta in this one. I think if they can find success Friday night, you don't have to win the game at South Carolina Friday night, but if you can find some success and get something rolling with your offense, you can pick off a Florida team on Sunday.
Wow. Let's see if you close the gap or pass me here. You are entering the week, my friend. You are 5-4-1. I am 6-4.
I'll take anything over 500.
500 keeps your job.
500 hockey probably gets you in the playoffs, so that's all that matters for me.
That's true.
Well, this is the exciting part of the show. We're going to get to welcome in our guest for tonight. The voice of the Kalamazoo Wings, John Peterson, is here to join us. And first of all, just how are you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Doing well. It's been an exciting couple of weeks for me and my family, also for the team here. So we've been very, very busy. Looking ahead at an exciting future with some of the recent news, which I'm sure you've heard. But very grateful for where we're at, where we've been, and where we're headed.
So, the first thing that jumps to mind is, you make the move from Tulsa to Kalamazoo, and Kalamazoo has been a hockey-rich market for a long, long time. What immediately attracted you to Kalamazoo? And then the second part of that question is, what attracted you to the Austin area?
Yeah, well, for starters, Kalamazoo is a little bit closer to home for both of us. And so at a time where I felt like I had achieved most of what I had wanted to achieve at the ECHL level, at a personal level, I should say, at this level, I felt like it was an opportunity to go to a place where I could succeed with exactly what I was looking forward to doing in my career, a little more focused on the broadcasting and the media relations and the PR and the social media and the marketing aspect. Just a little bit different organizational structure. I was very fortunate to meet some great people in Tulsa and had some great friends that I still keep in touch with to this day that I met down there. Kalamazoo is just was an awesome experience, a first-class organization from the top down. We were kept on staff the entire pandemic. We were one of the only teams, I think, that kept our staff whole through the pandemic. So that's a testament to the ownership up in Kalamazoo and their commitment to the team and the community. It's been awesome. It's been an awesome experience, and we're very fortunate that it was even an option a couple summers ago to come here and to continue my career and to fine tune my craft, if you will, and grow professionally and personally. And when this opportunity arose in Austin, obviously with the Texas Stars, a great organization, affiliate of the Dallas Stars, and it was kind of a no-brainer for us. Austin and Cedar Park is a fast-growing area. A lot of people are moving to that area of Texas. I've heard only great things. My family has talked about how great the area is. And for me, it was an opportunity to continue to chase my dreams and work at a very high level in professional hockey, and now move up a step closer to the NHL and work with some great people in the process. So we're all very grateful. Very it's almost overwhelming the last couple of weeks and the support that we received.
What has your time in the ECHL done for your career, would you say?
Oh, a number of things. It's made me a better person. It's made me cherish the friendships and the relationships that you build, the the genuine relationships you build with other broadcasters, with other teams, general managers and coaches, and the friends that you make that are very real. That's my favorite part. And I think, it's made me a little bit tougher too. It's not all, puppies and roses and unicorns all the time. There are some hardships at this level, but it makes you better. It teaches you that you have to work for what you have, and you have to appreciate what you have, and you have to work hard at it. And I would say that one thing that maybe doesn't get seen by people that aren't in this role necessarily, the broadcast PR role, is you are working probably 70, 80, 90 hours a week. And it's a grind. You're doing the game notes, you're studying the other team's rosters, you're doing the social media in a lot of cases, you're updating the website in a lot of cases. Some guys are doing sales, and that's their primary focus. And you do it for the love of the game. I mean, you're not doing it to get rich or to make lots of money. So you're doing it because you love the game. And that's what it's always been about for me. I love the game. I love the lifestyle. I love the relationships you build, which I intend on continuing regardless of where I'm at. Some of the friendships that I've made in the ECHL. And for me, it's always been about getting better, even from day one and on up. You never rest on your achievements and think that you're ready and you don't need to improve at all. For me, it's always been about what can I do better the next day. And that'll never change. That's just part of who I am. And so, when I got to Kalamazoo, I always say it kind of set me up for success in a way, because everything the organization is about, everything that I've been presented when I got there, the people in place here, the staff that I work with on a day-to-day basis, everybody makes each other better. And that was important to me. That was something that I knew that I wanted people around me that could help me with certain things that maybe I could have improved at it, and vice versa. So it's been a strange start to the year, because this isn't something that I ever envisioned even talking about at this point in the season. These are the types of things that happen in the off season, not 3 weeks into the regular season. So, things are really exciting right now for this Kalamazoo team too. And I know the coaches are excited about what they have. It's been a 500 start through 6 games, but this team is different from Kalamazoo Wings teams in recent years. And so I know there's a lot of buzz in the community. 3 of our first 4 games saw over 3,600 fans. We had a couple over 4,000. We had a sellout already. And so that's not something we're particularly used to, but that's a sign of the excitement in this community. So it's a little bit strange that this is all happening kind of at the beginning of the year, but I'm very fortunate to be in this position.
You mentioned that the Wings kept the staff employed throughout the pandemic, through the layoff there between the 2020 season and through the entire layoff of the 2021 season for you guys. Um, what did you learn in the pandemic, going through the pandemic, and about John Peterson, the person, that you feel like will set you up in this next role?
Yeah, that's a great question, and quite honestly, and it may not be what everybody's expecting to hear, but it helped me focus on. Not only was I focusing on different aspects of the job and creative ways to keep the fans engaged and to reach out to the fan base in different ways, reach out to the alumni, our players, provide content for them, stuff that you don't think of when you're in season and it's a normal regular season. When you go 19 months without playing, you need to get creative. So it helped me dive into some of my passion for writing. I started my bird's eye view blog, and I did 40 blogs during the pandemic that the fans seemed to enjoy. And then we started our podcast, our web series, Just Winging It, that we interviewed 50 guests for that show. But for me personally, I grew in a sense that it helped me appreciate a lot of things about life that are outside of the business, that are outside of hockey. Appreciate relationships with family and friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time. Helped me take more of an interest in public issues that were of interest to people in different communities that maybe I hadn't thought of before. I really took a more strong interest in how can I be a better person? How can I help somebody else? Chasing this dream of making it to the NHL sometimes can be self-serving. And saying that now that I'm moving up to the AHL might sound hypocritical, but during the pandemic, it helped me recenter and realize that it wasn't about just moving up the ladder. It was about appreciating where you are and who you have in your corner and who you have around you, and cherish some of those friendships that you've built and some of those relationships you've built. How could you help in different areas, like donating time or money to a nonprofit? Did a little bit of that during the pandemic. Appreciating the people that were on the front lines during the pandemic in the medical field. I can't imagine what those folks went through. That type of thing is what the pandemic really did for me personally. I feel like it helped me try to be a better person each day and not try to just be a better broadcaster that has his self-serving goals in mind that I've been working really hard at for the last decade plus. And obviously I'm going to try to continue that now in a new city.
I know John Peterson pretty well, going back to his Tulsa days and even in the Evansville Iceman days. That's a genuine answer, my friend. And that's, man, good on you for figuring out for all of the bad that the pandemic brought. You were able to go in there and source out the good and make it work for you. So good on you for doing that, my friend.
I appreciate it. It's you can't take this life for granted. We all know somebody that's been affected by this pandemic in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure a lot of us know somebody who's gotten sick or passed away from COVID. And, a lot of that kind of really makes you think about life, and so that's something that has really hit close to home as you hear more and more stories throughout the last 19 months. And it is comforting to know that maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And, sports is something that brings people together. Sports are something that people can get excited about, talk about, like you guys do on your show. Mm-hmm. And I know seeing buildings full again, seeing fans excited again, it gives you the chills a little bit, because we've gone so long without that, to see NHL teams pack, a 19,000 seat building and see how loud it gets. That's something that we all miss, and it makes you appreciate kind of what everybody's gone through. And then not take anything for granted going forward.
Especially our individuals who didn't get to participate in last year's season. We asked them in our season preview episode what they were most looking forward to for opening night. Now that we're past that, what was the best moment of opening night after a whole year and a half without hockey?
It's interesting. It was seeing some of the faces of the people that I've grown to know really, really well in my time in Kalamazoo. Some of the players that returned that didn't play last year, talking to Nick Bootland, our coach, and Joel Martin, and seeing their excitement, and it's just genuine. They've been waiting so long for this. And then welcoming the fans as the gates open, you just feel the buzz, right? And it was almost like with every moment during the game, that excitement level and that noise level was higher than it normally would be for an opening night. So you kind of had the chills. It was one of those things that the chills would come and go throughout the broadcast and throughout the game. The win was obviously special. To win on opening night is always a great way to start the year, but it was so much bigger than the win and the loss. The hockey side of things. It was just seeing everybody back together again and enjoying a game, getting back to normal. I think, I talked to a lot of broadcasters who their teams did play last year. And I was like, man, I haven't called a game in 590 days or something like that. I don't even know if I remember how to call a game, kind of half joking. And 3 or 4 of them said exactly the same thing. It's like riding a bike. It'll just be like riding a bike. You'll pick it up in no time. And so I kind of kept reminding myself of that as the day went along. And I think probably by the first media timeout of the first period, I was like, all right, I feel like I'm back to midseason form or close now. So, it took a little bit of that anxiety off the shoulders a little bit.
John Peterson, the voice of the Kalamazoo Wings, joining us here on the Three Periods podcast. I want to shift gears to the other big news of the week there in southwestern Michigan, and that's longtime Kalamazoo goaltender Joel Martin going into the ECHL Hall of Fame. We talked about his career accolades a little bit earlier in the show, and I talked about how I watched him in the Central Hockey League. You've had a ringside seat to watch Joel's last few years of his career, and then into the transition into him being an assistant coach there with Nick Bootland. What do you think that this means to Joel and to the Kalamazoo Wings organization?
Well, Joel's about as humble as a guy as you'll meet. He's one of the classiest people I've ever been around. His professionalism is like one of the first things you notice about Joel, and he's just a genuine, kind, excellent human being. And so I think we're all extremely happy for him here. We had a meeting. Joel's known for a little bit now, and the league was waiting to announce, obviously, the Hall of Fame inductees until today for various reasons. But we all didn't know until maybe 2 weeks ago on staff, or a week and a half ago, somewhere in there. And we kind of decided that we would surprise Joel during practice. And this was Nick Bootland's idea, with the players on the ice and everything. And then the front office team, we all had our weekly front office meeting going on while the team was practicing. So we paused our meeting. The front office went out to the rink. We all just sat down in a random section. The practice, they got done with the drill, so they all met over by the whiteboard. And we had Tim, our creative producer, put a graphic up on the big, 40-foot video board there at Wings Event Center with Joel Martin, Hall of Fame. And this was before the news got out to the public. Obviously, that got out today, but a week and a half or so ago, we did this and just surprised him. And we're all clapping, hooting and hollering, and the players are, banging their sticks on the ice. And I think it was an emotional moment for him, because he's a guy that likes to keep his emotions in check. You have to if you're a good goalie, and he was one of the best. But it's pretty special to have your peers and your teammates show their appreciation and your love for somebody who's just so well respected in this community, and then respected beyond. I mean, his impact on hockey goes way beyond Kalamazoo. Obviously he won a championship here in the UHL. He played here for several years. He played with Nick Bootland as teammates, for Nick Bootland as his coach, and now coaches with Nick Bootland on the same staff. How often do you see that? And those two are as good of friends off the ice as they work well together, at the rink. So I've been very grateful to be a part of that group and to make friends with this staff that I've been able to, because they're special people, and I intend to stay in touch with them for a long, long time, wherever I'm at, wherever they're at. And I hope, selfishly for them, that they they both get opportunities up the ladder as well, because they're both extremely deserving and they're both very, very good at what they do. And for Joel to be honored by the league, I mean, to be a Hall of Famer in any capacity is a huge deal. And, it's well deserving for a guy who put in the work and carried himself with class throughout his entire career.
Let's talk about the Kalamazoo Wings this year. You guys, as you mentioned, out to a 500 start, but you said that the coaching staff likes what they have here so far. A pretty good arrangement with Columbus just down the road. Tell us a little bit more about this Wings Hockey Club here as we get ready to go into the weekend.
Yeah. First of all, the Columbus and Cleveland affiliation has been a really, really good. It's been a really good relationship so far, and one that has been discussed as a 3-tiered system. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's not just words saying, it's a 3-tiered system where everybody's going to help each other out. I think there's been evidence of that right out of the gate. Cleveland and Columbus have been off to some pretty good starts themselves, which is great to see. And for us, we've been impacted right away by players that have a genuine bright future in the game of hockey, young players that will be playing significant time at the AHL level and beyond, that are starting their careers in Kalamazoo. Our goalie, Jet Greaves, he's something special. I mean, he's 20 years, 230 days old or something like that. He's nowhere close to his 21st birthday yet. He turns 21 at the end of March. Wow. And he has a very high ceiling. And this is a guy who didn't play last year. He was his final year junior eligibility in Barrie in the OHL got washed out due to the pandemic when the OHL didn't play. So he's gone over a year without playing significant hockey, comes to us in training camp, gets called up due to an emergency up in Cleveland, and travels with their team to Belleville, and they've got a 3-3 or something along those lines. He played his professional debut was a 40 save win in Belleville, 2-1 for Cleveland, and then comes to us like a few days later and then wins his debut with Kalamazoo. And the guy can play. I mean, he made huge saves last night in Cincinnati to keep our team. Our team played really well all the way across the board last night. Cyclones are a solid team as always, and that's a tough place to play. And I thought we outplayed them definitely in the second period, especially the first half of the second period. But they came on strong. I mean, they were coming fast and furious, and Jet made save after save after save. And so then you've got guys like Jake Slaker, who's a University of Michigan alum, had a storied career in Ann Arbor, who's a Cleveland prospect. You've got Zach Jordan, who's a big-bodied power forward that played at Nebraska Omaha. You've got Olivier LeBlanc, who's a very skilled, talented defenseman who just went up to Cleveland today. But and then you've got Giovanni Velati, who's currently up in Cleveland, who played a little bit for us as well. So there's a lot of that 3-tiered system that we're seeing that I think has been a bright spot for Kalamazoo. And then on top of that, the guys that the coaching staff went out and recruited have really contributed right out of the gate. Eric Bradford, a veteran center who's a good leader, one of our alternate captains, established player in this league. He's played for Utah and Toledo, and he's been around a little bit. Orlando, Jacksonville. Brendan Miller, who's basically like a stepbrother of Eric Bradford. They're from the same hometown, Orangeville, Ontario, and they've played for 4 different teams together. It's basically a package deal. So when the coaching staff signed one, they got the other, and both have been very good for us. And then Max Humitz is a player who was a captain at Lake Superior State, and during the pandemic year last year played in Grand Rapids. And he only got in 8 games for the Griffins, but that was his full rookie season was in Grand Rapids, and he signed with us in the offseason, and he's been awesome. So this team, I think could do some damage. I think the Central Division as a whole is very good this year from what I've seen so far. Better than in past years, which is saying a lot for a division that has Fort Wayne, who just won the championship. Toledo's always good. It seems like Indy's a resurgent team that can do some damage. And then I haven't seen Wheeling yet. We see Iowa for the first time Sunday. Cincinnati, though, is big. I mean, they've got a lot of size and good defensively, good goaltending. So it'll be interesting to see what Kalamazoo can do. But I know the coaching staff's excited. This team's really fast too. A lot of speed on this year's group, and speed at this level, speed can kill at the ECHL level. If you can stand out by getting by guys flying down the wing, I mean, you can do some damage in this league. And so I'm excited to see what Kalamazoo can do. Obviously, it'll be a little weird watching from afar after this weekend, but they have a pretty good roster.
Yeah. And then
After the start you've had, what's the ceiling for this Kalamazoo team?
That's a good question. I mean, I think as every team goes through at this level, it's really going to come down to the health of the team and the health of the affiliation. When you have teams like Newfoundland, when they won the title, and they had 15 AHL guys or NHL guys from Toronto, I mean, it's hard to argue with how stacked that team was. When you got a team like South Carolina that always has a great affiliation and they work so well with Hershey and Washington up and down, and then they sign a lot of great players as well every year. That's a team that can do some damage. Toledo seems to be able to get all these ex-AHL and NHL guys to sign ECHL contracts, and that team's always good. And they don't even have a lot of help from their affiliation this year, but they're dangerous. I mean, they score a ton of goals. I think Kalamazoo I definitely think they're a playoff team, even in a very good division. And I don't mean to put all kinds of pressure on the K-Wings because this is just one man's opinion, but I think they can make the playoffs in a tough division, and anybody can beat anybody on any given night. So yeah, you could have a team like Toledo that maybe ends up winning the division, let's say hypothetically. But I think, as we saw, I mean, the K-Wings beat the Walleye 5-2 on opening night. The Walleye beat the K-Wings 6-0 last weekend. Cincinnati shut us out 1-0 a couple weekends back. Last night we beat Cincinnati 4-2. So there's going to be a lot of that this year. But I think Kalamazoo could make a deep run. And we don't see a lot of teams from other divisions. So I guess I don't know what the ceiling looks like beyond the Central. But I think the Central, there's probably 5 or 6 teams maybe that could do some damage in the Central this year when it's all said and done. And I definitely think the K-Wings are one of those teams.
How are your Minnesota Vikings doing?
Not so good. My love for the Vikings, my support for the Vikings never ends. I watch every game if I can. It's been painful. It's been a painful year. But I always got to support them, as you see right now. And with Veterans Day today and Salute to Service across the NFL, this was last year's Salute to Service hat that they made. I had to get my hands on one of these when I got the opportunity to. So obviously I want to support those who have served in the armed forces, past and present, and support my Vikings at the same time. And even though I'm going to Texas and I'll be a Texas hockey fan and a Dallas Stars fan now, working in the organization, I still got to support my Vikings on the gridiron.
Yeah. So these are your final 2 games behind the mic, or your final few games behind the mic for Kalamazoo this weekend. What does the next 10 days look like after that?
Well, I'm actually moving to Texas next week, getting started right away with the Stars, and I'm super excited about that. We're tying up some loose ends here as much as we can, packing up the house, packing up for the foreseeable future. And I get started next week. My first AHL game with Texas will be a home game against Grand Rapids next weekend on Friday and Saturday, the 19th and 20th. And so I'm very excited for that. I'm excited to meet everybody down there and gel with the front office staff and the hockey ops staff. And, we go on the road right after Thanksgiving. My first road trip with the team will be to Manitoba and to Laval. So I'll get to see 2 cities I've never been to. I'm really excited my first road game will be in an NHL rink with the Winnipeg Jets arena there. So it's moving very fast, and my wife will eventually get down to Texas and join me, and we've got a place lined up. So we're excited to get everything moved down there. But for her, it'll take a little bit more time to get the loose ends tied up here, and then join me down in Texas. So I'll get a head start next week. But yeah, it's I finished with the K-Wings final game Sunday, last day's Monday, and then I fly to Texas Tuesday, and my first day's Wednesday. So. But hey, I'm very fortunate to even be in this position, and I'm looking forward to making the most of it. And in doing all I can do to help a great organization for the foreseeable future. I hope to be there a long time.
Well, I don't have anything else to say here, Matt. Except John. Matt and I have seen you in Intrust Bank Arena when you were with the Tulsa Oilers, and now you're off with the Kalamazoo Wings and now the Texas Stars. This could not have happened to a finer broadcaster and a finer human than you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I know it is completely chaos for you right now, but thank you so much for giving us your time. All the best to you in in Central Texas, and we will be definitely following you from afar and rooting you on.
I appreciate the kind words, guys. Thanks for having me on, and keep up the great work.
Thanks very much, buddy. That is John Peterson from the Kalamazoo Wings joining us here as we wrap up the show. Solid human being. Solid human being.
Absolutely. If you've got time this weekend, tune in for a Kalamazoo game before he hits the road. He's one of the best that the ECHL has right now.
Absolutely. And you think about it, like the bench is so deep of those guys of play guys.
Oh yeah.
You have Tommy Daniels and Allen, who's called championships there in North Texas. You have Matt Melzak in Toledo and Dylan Coyle in Reading, and the list goes on and on. Like, these are enjoyable guys to listen to and gals to listen to across the ECHL. And this league should really boast these guys and their calls to bring hockey and the excitement of AA hockey to everybody across the country. It really is. This level is a hidden gem in my mind, and those guys are the reason why.
I was so stoked when I got your message earlier today when you had let me know that he had gotten his call up. Of course, as a guy who's trying to make it here in the next couple of years into the SPHL or ECHL fold as a broadcaster myself, it's just so cool to see the guys who deserve it getting their chance where they deserve it. I mean, we just this past offseason, I immediately think of Mark Bennetti was the big one to go from Rapid City up to the AHL, and this is another no-brainer for the AHL to bring a guy up. He's going to do great things in Central Texas.
Yeah, for sure. And in Mark's case, it just shows that no matter how long you stay and grind, you will eventually get rewarded. In his situation, Mark is an extremely talented broadcaster, a man of 1,000 voices, and I love his perspective on everything. The way he calls a game and just down to the human day-to-day stuff. So they got a good one in Stockton as well. And the Texas Stars are getting an even better one in John Peterson. That is for sure.
It's almost two different people. You've got John Peterson, the broadcaster, and you've got John Peterson, the human.
Yeah.
And they are both fine individuals, but to have men and women like that in the ECHL is extraordinary. And above all, we're a developmental league for players, for coaches, for on-ice officials, and for broadcasters. And the ECHL can once again hang their head high, knowing that they've yet again improved someone's future from what they've done here.
Absolutely. Well said.
Well, that suddenly draws us to a close. I guess I say suddenly, but it's been 75, almost 75 minutes. But exciting, another weekend of ECHL hockey ahead of us. I think that the introduction of our Hall of Fame class sets up for another couple of interesting weeks of discussion. We'll obviously try to have some guests on that can maybe give us a little insight into some of these guys' lives and what they bring to the table for the Hall of Fame. Like you mentioned, just single-digit weeks away now until we'll all be gathered in Jacksonville for the All-Star Classic, and add another like 11 or 12, or math's difficult, and we're going to be starting the playoff, which is just crazy. So
yes. Let's not put the cart before the horse here. You know, it is only November.
We have to hit Thanksgiving first because that's when we know the playoff teams.
That's right. I thought we're going to clinch playoff berths here in the next few weeks. So the rest after the All-Star break, it'll be like a game. Whose line is it anyway? Everything's made up, and the points don't matter.
Although last year when we had our Thanksgiving break, which I actually wrote, I think 3 weeks into January, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
The only team that hadn't played was Fort Wayne, and
right. And
look at him go.
And didn't we kind of caveat that of, well, we don't know if Fort Wayne's going to play.
Exactly.
If they play, go ahead and lock them in.
Yeah.
You know.
And they came out of nowhere and took it all. So
that's right.
Well, we thank you all for tuning in tonight, or if you're joining us on Friday when we release this just a little bit later, thank you for joining us. Let us know on Twitter at 3periodspod what games you're going to be watching this weekend. Let us know your picks to click for this weekend, and if you've got an updated record for yourself, let us know how you're doing. Next week guest, like you see on your screen there, or you wouldn't be able to see it if you're listening on our various places that we can listen. Toledo Walleye head coach Dan Watson will join us next week. I'm very excited to hear his thoughts about how things are going there in Toledo. But for Matthew Harding, I'm Matthew Will, and thank you for joining us for yet another 3 Periods podcast. We've got our picks to click in. Let us know yours, and we'll talk to you next week here on the 3 Periods podcast. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to the 3 Periods podcast. Do you have a topic you'd like discussed? Hit us up on Twitter at 3periodspod with the hashtag TPP on FPH. And for the latest news on the ECHL and minor league hockey, visit fieldpasshockey.com.
They're going home.
Thanks, Coach.